The handyman. When I was about 7 years old, my family and I moved to a new neighborhood. It wasn't anything too special, but definitely an upgrade from the places we'd lived before. Or so we thought. It wasn't too long before things started to become a little sus. One night in particular, I remember that I ended up rushing to sleep in my mum's room right before bedtime simply because I couldn't go to bed. There was a very faint sound of beeping underneath my bed that I likened to the sound of a watch. I was 7 years old at the time. I didn't own a watch. I began to tense up immediately when I heard the beeping once again. At this point, I was practically stiff as a board, unintentionally holding my breath in a panic. Then after a few seconds of silence, I heard a low chuckle of a man. I got my little ass up and ran to my mum's room in a frenzy, telling her what had just happened. She let me sleep in her room for the night, but of course I eventually had to go back. Fast forward to what was probably a few months later, I got up in the AM to get ready for school. My sisters had just started middle school, so they had already left a bit earlier, and my mom's boyfriend had an earlier shift than her, so he was already at work. So it was just me and my very sleepy mom, who sounds like a grumpy man whenever her rest is disturbed. Before I continue, I should mention that one of the bathrooms had a towel bar that was screwed into the wall. The screws would often loosen, which would occasionally cause the bar to fall and hang halfway off the wall. I went to the bathroom to brush my teeth and get ready, when I noticed that the bar, once again, was beginning to dangle off the wall. The screws were almost completely out of the wall, so I reluctantly went to the other room to awaken the beast, my mom, from a precious slumber and let her know what was going on. She very grumpily asked me what I wanted, and I explained to her the towel bar situation. She told me to just forget about it and that she'd fix it later. I shrugged it off and went to the kitchen to make a Pop-Tart. After I finished, I went to the bathroom to wash my hands, and my mouth could have dropped to the floor when I realized that the bar was not only fully back on the wall, but unscrewed in as if someone had used a drill. I stared at it in complete awe and confusion for a few seconds, until my mind came up with the only rational answer to the problem. My mum had obviously gotten up from her slumber and thoughtfully fixed it while I was eating my Pop-Tart. Although I knew that wasn't true, I convinced myself it had to be. Otherwise, we all know what the alternative was. I reluctantly walked to my mum's room once again, hesitating with every step. Not just because I was super freaked out about the bar, but I also didn't want to have to awaken the beast from her slumber yet again. But still, I had to know. I woke her up and got a deep growl from her in return. I quickly explained to her that the towel bar was now fixed, and insisted she tell me that she's the one who got up and fixed it while I was eating. I didn't get the response I wanted. She growled once again and said that she hadn't moved a muscle and to leave. Her. Alone. My heart dropped out of my chest as I got this news, because that only meant that my speculations were correct. There indeed was a ghost in the house after all. It was probably the same man whose voice and watch I heard underneath my bed. I realize how strange this scenario is, because usually you hear stories of ghosts trying to taunt people, but this one for the most part liked to help us, kind of like Casper. So I guess I can't really complain too much, but I would still rather not have a supernatural presence in my home regardless. My guess is that he was probably a handyman of some sort when he was alive, but I still can't wrap my head around how he would be able to silently drill screws back into a wall. Gives me shivers just thinking about it. There are other even more bizarre situations that occurred where things that were so broken ended up miraculously fixed. After all this time, I still don't know what was scarier though. The ghost, or my mum.